Today, we are jumping headfirst into the world of lease accounting to tackle a question that's, well, it's a lot trickier than it sounds.
When is renting actually buying? I know, it sounds like a riddle, doesn't it? But trust me, in corporate finance, this is no joke. It's a critical question, and the answer can completely change how you see a company's financial health.
See, for a long time, leases were this clever little loophole. A company could get its hands on a massive asset. We're talking fleets of airplanes, whole factories, shiny office towers, and none of it, especially not the massive debt that came with it, had to show up on their main financial report, the balance sheet. So you'd have these companies looking way less risky and way less indebted than they really were. As you can imagine, the rule makers had to step in and say, okay, hold on. The financial statements need to tell the real story here.
And this all boils down to one core principle, and it's a big one: substance over form. This quote right here says it all. It basically means forget what the contract is called. Who cares if the paper says lease agreement? An accountant's job is to look past that piece of paper, the form, and get to the economic reality of the deal, the substance. Are you really just borrowing this thing? Or, for all intents and purposes, do you actually own it?
So that leads us to the two main characters in this whole drama, the operating lease and the finance lease. And the secret to telling them apart? It all comes down to a simple question. Who's really shouldering the risks and reaping the rewards of owning the thing? Yeah, check this out. On one side, you've got the operating lease. Just think of this as a true rental, like renting a car for a weekend. The owner, the lessor, they're the one who keeps most of the risks and rewards. But on the other side, you've got the finance lease. This is the sneaky one. It's basically a purchase in disguise. The user, the lessee, they're the one taking on pretty much all the risks and rewards, even if legally their name isn't on the title.
Okay, but what are these risks and rewards we keep talking about? Well, risks are things like, what if the machine just sits there doing nothing? That's called idle capacity. Or what if some new tech comes out and makes it totally obsolete? Those are risks. And the rewards? That's the good stuff. Using the asset to make a ton of money, or its value actually going up over time. It's really simple. Who gets the upside and who gets the downside?
All right, so if the mission is to unmask these disguised purchases, how does an accountant actually do it? Well, this is where they put on their detective hat. They've got a clear set of clues laid out for them right in the accounting standards.
So how do they do it? When an accountant is staring at a 100-page lease agreement, what are the telltale signs? What gives the game away? Well, it turns out there are 5 key clues they look for.
Okay, the first couple of clues are pretty much no-brainers. First, does the contract literally say that ownership transfers to you at the end of the lease? If yes, boom, finance lease, done. Second, do you have the option to buy the asset at the end for a ridiculously low price? So low that you'd be crazy not to? That's called a bargain purchase option, and yep, that's another dead giveaway.
Now hold on. Before we get to the next clues, we need to quickly define a term, economic life. This isn't about how long a machine will physically last. It's about how long it's actually useful. Think about it. A 5-year-old computer might still turn on, but for a high-tech company, its economic life is probably long gone.
Okay, with economic life in mind, here are the last 3 clues. Is the lease term for the major part of that economic life? Like, if the thing is only useful for 10 years and you're leasing it for 8 or 9 of them, you're pretty much using up the whole thing. Next, do your total lease payments basically cover the entire cost of the asset? If you're paying for the whole thing anyway, well, you're buying it. And last, is the asset super specialized, like it's custom built and only your company can use it without major changes? If any of these are yes, it points straight to a finance lease.
Okay, so we've got the clues, we know how to classify these things, but so what? Why does any of this actually matter? Well, this is the big reveal. This is where we see just how huge of an impact this one little decision can have on a company's financial story.
And here it is, laid out plain and simple. The difference is night and day. With an operating lease, the true rental, it's easy. Your payments are just a rent expense on the income statement. That's it. Nothing touches the balance sheet. But a finance lease, whoa, it's a whole different ballgame. Suddenly, you have to put the asset on your books, but you also have to record a giant liability for all those future payments. And on the income statement, no more simple rent. Now you've got depreciation and interest expense. So what does this all mean in plain English? A finance lease makes a company look bigger. Hey, more assets. But it also makes it look way more indebted. An operating lease, on the other hand, keeps that debt hidden off the main books, making the company look lighter, leaner, and maybe less risky. Now you can see why this is so critical for anyone, investors, banks, you, trying to figure out what's really going on with a company's finances.
All right, now for a plot twist. Let's look at a real-world maneuver where all these rules get put to the test in a pretty clever way: the sale and leaseback.
It's a two-step dance. First, a company sells an asset it owns, say its main office building, to an investor. In return, they get a huge pile of cash. Then, step 2, they immediately sign a lease to rent that exact same building back. So they get the cash, but their day-to-day operations don't miss a beat.
So let's break that down. Step 1, sell the building, get cash. Step 2, lease it right back. And then comes step 3, the crucial part. The accountants have to figure out what kind of lease this new leaseback is. Is it a simple operating lease or is it a finance lease? And they use all those clues we just talked about to decide. And this is where it gets really interesting, because the answer to that question changes everything. It determines how the company gets to book the profit from selling the building in the first place. If the leaseback is an operating lease, they often get to report that profit right away, a nice instant boost to their earnings. But if it's a finance lease, that profit gets trapped. It has to be spread out slowly over the entire life of the lease. So yeah, the stakes are pretty high.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here. The principles, the clues, the consequences. So if there's just one thing you remember from all of this, what should it be?
It's this. Lease accounting is not just about boring rules for accountants. It's about one thing: truth. It's about making sure that a company's financial statements reflect reality, what they actually control and what they actually owe, not just what some fancy legal contract says. So I'll leave you with this thought. The next time you're looking at a company's financials, will you maybe look a little closer? Will you wonder what story their leases are really telling? Because sometimes the most important information isn't on the front page, but hidden in the notes. It's definitely a question worth asking.